Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Emma ran into the hall, tugging down her skirt with one hand and trying to button her blouse with the other. Her hands were shaking, and her hair was disheveled. And her eyes were filled with horror. It's good that it's dark in the hall, and the guests are already drunk, and no one pays attention to me. She thought frantically for a moment, stopping to look for her friend. "Kayla," Emma whispered in her ear, looking around worriedly. "Can we go home soon?" "No way." She pouted her lips capriciously. "It's the middle of the evening, and you're back already." Kayla asked in a drunken voice. "I thought I wouldn't see you until morning." "What's the matter with you?" "Where are you taking me?" "Leave me alone. I don't want to go." "Please be quiet." "I'm begging you," my friend whispered. "Let's go outside. I'll explain everything to you." "What's going on?" Pulling her hand out of Emma's grasp, Kayla asked, "Oh, what's wrong with your blouse? Is there blood on your sleeve? And why are the buttons ripped out? Where have you been?" "Kayla," Emma burst into tears. "I killed him." "What?" Kayla shrieked, and instantly her eyes became more meaningful. "You did what?" "I killed him." "Shut up, stupid." The girl clamped her friend's mouth shut. "Do you know who his father is?" She whispered in panic. "He'll roll you in concrete when he finds out you killed his only son." I didn't mean to." Emma sobbed. "It was an accident." "Emma," finally. Kayla rushed to greet her friend as soon as she opened the door to the room. "I've already set the table. We're going to celebrate you getting into college." "I didn't get in." The girl pressed her back against the door, helplessly dropped her bag, covered her face with her hands, and cried. Can you imagine? Just 2 points short. "Oh, come on." Kayla looked at her friend, stunned. "You did well in your exams, didn't you?" "I failed the last one." "That's a shame. What are you going to do?" "There's not much choice. Either get a job here or go home and study, and then apply again in the summer." "Stay." Kayla cheered up. "You'll get a job. We'll rent an apartment for 2. It'll be cheaper." "Well, this dormitory, do you know how we'll live?" She smiled dreamily. "We'll find ourselves rich guys, not like our village ones." "No, I'll go home." Disappointed Emma sat down at the table and smiled wryly. "What's there to do in our village? There are no good jobs. Are you going to work for pennies all your life?" "Stay. You know Jack and I are getting married soon. He's coming back from the army in 2 months." "Jack." Kayla snorted contemptuously. "You're going to sit in our hole until you die." "Why you say that?" Emma was offended at her friend. "Jack is very nice. We love each other. I'm not going to stay at home. I'll prepare well, and next year I'll definitely enroll." "I really want to study." "I don't understand. What do you see in him?" "Are you hoping Jack will let you go to the city to study?" "Sure. I'll bring him along and we'll study together." "I can't believe he'd let you go. And there's so many boys here. It's amazing." "I met one recently. Not the son of an oligarch, but he's nice too. Though he grew up in an orphanage, but you can see he's promising. I'm not going to marry him. In general, I think that one should first take everything from life and then start a family. By the way, Lime has a friend named John, and he's exactly the kind of man every self-respecting girl dreams of, and I won't be me if I can't get him into bed. What are you thinking? You're here to study, remember? One can't stop the other. You know what? I'm gonna make a strong statement. Wipe your tears, make yourself presentable. Let's go to the cafe." "Why?" Emma was surprised. "You have a great table set up. You can't waste food." "It's okay. Let's go. You just need to unwind." An hour later, the girls were sitting at a table on soft, cozy, leather sofas in a cafe not far from the dormitory where Kayla lived. They were chatting animatedly, recalling stories from their school life without noticing anyone around them. "What a nice meeting," suddenly they heard. "Liam? John?" Kayla smiled. "May I sit at your table?" Without waiting for permission, the boys sat down next to the girls. Liam took a seat next to Kayla and John next to Emma. "Kayla," John addressed her, "introduce us to your friend." "Emma, these are my acquaintances," reluctantly said the girl, noticing with what interest John looked at her friend. "Liam? John?" "Girls," Liam looked from one to the other in astonishment. "If I didn't know that you Kayla didn't have any sisters, I would have thought you were related. You look so much alike." "Yes, even at school we were often confused." Kayla laughed, a light of envy in her eyes. She saw the way John looked at Emma. What did he see in her? "Oh no," she thought, smiling and making eyes at John across from her. "I'm not going to let this man get away from me. This man will be mine." Emma sat back, squeezing herself so as not to accidentally touch the young man with her elbow or knee. She felt awkward in the company of strange men. "Kayla, Emma, I'm inviting you to my birthday party this weekend." John studied the new acquaintance with interest. He definitely liked her. They look alike. He thought to himself after a while. But how different internally. Emma is modest, quiet, doesn't try to draw attention to herself, while Kayla goes out of her way to make me like her. "Why don't we go to my house in the country? We'll organize everything: kebabs, wine, champagne, music. In general, everything as it should be. You'll be the centerpiece of our party." "Great!" Kayla clapped her hands. "We'll be there, of course." "Excuse me," Emma said quietly. "I can't. I have tickets home." She paused for a second and added firmly, "And I have a fiancé waiting for me." "What a pity!" Sincerely saddened the young man. "Can't you change your plans for me? It's my birthday?" "No, but Kayla will definitely support your company." "Kayla," Liam took her hand in his and kissed it. "Are you coming? I'll pick you up." "I haven't decided yet," the girl answered. "Emma?" John looked carefully into her eyes. "Think about it. You can leave the next day, give up the tickets, and I'll reimburse you the difference. I don't want to leave you guys. You're such great girls. Kayla." Emma stood up resolutely. "I think we should go." "Goodbye." "We're not saying goodbye to you girls," John said playfully after them. "I hope you change your mind." When Kayla got to the dormitory, she gave Emma a hard time. "Why do you keep going home to home? The guy invited her, and she's not even thinking about it. Let's go together. I'm afraid to go alone. I don't know anyone except the landlord and Liam. Such a chance to be in John's house. It's not fair of you to just leave like that. I've got to do everything I can to get him to pay attention to me." "What would you do, stay a day?" "Why, John, you've got Liam. He's just a bridge to get me to a real man. What's he got to do with it?" Kayla grinned contemptuously. "He's just a pale semblance of his friend." "Here, John," she rolled her eyes dreamily. "That's a man. Did you get a sense of how strong, assertive he is? He knows for sure the whole world is rightfully his. With Daddy's money." Emma grinned. "So what?" Kayla took offense. "It's their family business that's going to him anyway. It's not his fault his parents are worried about his future. I think Liam loves you. Did you notice how he looked at you all night and was jealous of you while you made eyes at John? Don't you feel sorry for him? Let him love himself to his heart's content." Kayla waved her hand nonchalantly. "He can't give me anything. unlike John. Do you know how rich his father is? Come with me, please. What's it worth to you? Let's see how rich people live. It's just a party. I promise Jack won't find out. Don't you want your friend to be happy? The girl whined. This is such a chance. If you are satisfied with Jack as a future husband, I'm not going to live in poverty all my life. Go for it. I'm sure you won't regret it. All right. Emma made up her mind. But I have to go home first thing in the morning the next day. Promise you won't talk me into staying late? Thank you. Kayla squealed with joy and rushed over to kiss the girl. I promise. I knew you wouldn't leave me. You're a true friend. At John's country house, the party was in full swing when Emma and Kayla arrived. John. The young man knelt down on the lap of a beautiful blonde with a thin waist, exemplary figure draped in a dress of a famous brand. Don't be bored. Let's go dancing. Get off. The young man rudely pushed her down. I don't want to go anywhere. He frowned, glancing at the door from time to time. I'm so sick of you all. He pondered, looking at the motley crowd of young people who sang, talked loudly, kissed and danced unashamedly. The same faces. Phi John. Again a girl came up to him. How rude you are. Come to me. I'll entertain you. She reached up to kiss him. We had a good time with you. At that time, the girls entered the living room and stopped, looking around at the crowd in embarrassment. Why did I listen to you and stay? We're strangers here. Did you see their outfits? So what? Kayla challenged, and we'll be just as good as them when we marry well. That's what we came here for. Hello, she said loudly, trying to draw attention to herself. John, who just now was bored and accepting the caresses of his girlfriend, immediately became animated when he noticed the girls. Who do I see? He got up from the sofa and walked towards them. Gentlemen, I would like to introduce my new acquaintances, Kayla and Emma. Girls, he hugged and pushed them to the table in the center of the room. Please drink to my birthday. He served both of them a glass of champagne. The guests became animated as well, reaching for their drinks, discussing the new arrivals. Kayla. A smiling Liam approached her. I don't think you're coming. She smiled back, and her eyes were filled with annoyance. Meanwhile, John had captured Emma's attention. We couldn't miss such a great party. Shall we go dancing? Begging, looking at the girl, Liam asked. I missed you. They stepped into the circle. He hugged her and began to whisper some silly things, but Kayla didn't listen. She tried not to let John out of her sight. Emma, I'm happy you didn't run home, he said playfully, sitting her down next to him on the couch. And then I would have had to chase after you. You're not used to being turned down, are you? Right. He laughed, revealing a row of straight white teeth. I'll tell you a secret. I always get what I want. You think the whole world should be at your feet. What can you do? He faked a sigh. I was born with a golden spoon in my mouth. My mom calls me a fortunate man. Nothing is off limits to me but you. He whispered right into her ear. Emma felt goosebumps running down her skin from his touch. But I hope you will relent and pay attention to me. I have a fiancé. We're getting married soon. The girl reminded him, moving away from him. I know. The young man waved his hands at her. But the fiancé is far away, and I'm right here. He took the glass from her and ceremoniously invited her to dance. Relax, John demanded. Look at the fun everyone's having here. Don't you know how to relax? He pulled her against him, ran his hot hands down her back. Stay with us, he asked. Why go back to the village? I like you, the kind of woman I've always dreamed of. quiet, calm, made for a family. My father will be pleased. He does not like languid, brash girls from my neighborhood. He wants someone like you by my side. I'm sorry." Emma gently slipped out of his arms. "I'm tired. Let's sit down." "Okay." John released her from his embrace and led her over to the table. "I'll bring you some wine you've never had before." "Thank you. I don't want any." No. This wine you must try, at least a sip." He waved and a waiter appeared with a tray in his hand. John took a glass, swirled the clear liquid, and handed it to Emma. "First smell the aroma, and then take a sip. Hold it in your mouth for a while. Taste it." Emma accepted the glass and took a sip. "It's nice," she agreed. "I'm glad you like it. It's an expensive wine. We order it specially from France for special occasions." "Wow." The girl marveled, savoring the drink. "It must be insanely expensive." "Well, my dad can afford to please the family sometimes, such wines. My birthday is worth it. My father never spares anything for me. I almost never know refusal." "Drink up," the man asked. "That's the custom for a birthday." Having drained almost the whole glass, Emma suddenly felt unpleasant dizziness. Her legs suddenly became disobedient. Her thoughts became confused. "Something doesn't feel right." Stopping at each word, the girl said, "Take me to the ladies' room, please." She followed John with a firm step. The girl remembered exactly how she had entered the bathroom to wash and tidy up, and then it was as if she had fallen into darkness. She heard some sounds, realized that someone was leading her somewhere, as if in a fog. John's face appeared and disappeared. She woke up to someone caressing her, covering her face with kisses, murmuring something affectionately. Jack. The first thought flashed through her mind. But why would Jack be here? She opened her eyes, gazing up at whoever was trying to get under her clothes, and froze in horror. "John?" Her arms didn't listen well. There was a strange lethargy in her whole body, but Emma started to resist. "John, what are you doing?" With disobedient lips she spoke. "Stop it, let me go." "Emma!" passionately whispered the man, running his hand under her blouse and caressing her breasts. With his other hand he tried to pull down her panties. "You're so sweet. I want you right now." Finally, he managed to pull her under him. Emma's eyes darkened with sharp pain. "Am I your first man?" John laughed throatily. "That's never happened to me before." "Baby, I'll show you what a real man can do." Emma cried, but the man remained deaf to her tears. John loosened his grip, and the girl managed to get out of his embrace and stand up, but she felt dizzy. Her head was buzzing, and she headed for the door. John caught up with her, knocked her to the floor. "Oh, how passionate you are." I knew that behind the outward calmness, there was a storm of emotion. "Relax. Let's give each other unforgettable pleasure." "Leave me alone." The girl screamed. "Why are you doing this? You know I'm getting married soon, and we won't say anything to your fiancé. But we're having a good time. Why is my head so foggy? What was in that glass?" She pulled away from him again, trying to get to her feet. "I guess I miscalculated this time. You came to your senses too soon." The young man came closer to her. "But I'm not used to backing down." "But I'm not used to retreat. I assure you, you will not regret. No one has not complained. Stay, I'll pay you well later. Just one night. I haven't had..." Emma's escape was noticed only by Kayla, who rushed after her. "Emma!" She called out to her already in the yard. "Where are you going?" The girl stopped abruptly and turned to her friend. "What? What's wrong with you? You're not even wearing your face." "Kayla!" Emma clutched at her arm and spoke in a broken whisper. Kayla, honey, I killed him. Who? Kayla stared at her dumbfounded. John. Emma burst into tears. He spiked my wine. I blacked out for a while, and when I woke up I realized he was trying to rape me. What are you making up? Why would he do that? He knew I wouldn't willingly go to bed with him. Crying? Emma replied. What was I supposed to do? He raped me. I started to break free and hit him on the head with a vase. Let's go and have a look. Maybe he's still alive? No. I killed him for sure. Shouted Emma. Shut up, stupid. Kayla clamped her mouth with the palm of her hand and looked around fearfully. Do you realize what you've done? Do you know who his father is? He's going to bury us in concrete for his son. What do we do? Pull yourself together right now. She told me to. Did anyone see you outside his bedroom? I don't think so. That's good. Then let's get out of here right now. No one will notice we're gone. They won't be interested in us. Get in the car. I'll take you to the dorm. The girls hurried to the parking lot. We can't drive. Emma tried to stop her friend. We've both been drinking. What if something happens? And it's Liam's car. How are we going to get into it? Don't worry. Kayla answered confidently. She took her keys out of her purse and waved them in front of her friend's nose. I have a spare set, and I'm a good driver, Liam taught me. No, you can't risk it. Let's call a cab. There's no time to wait. We've got to get out of here before someone misses us. You don't want to go to jail, do you? Emma shook her head fearfully. I'll take you and go back to the party. No one will notice I'm gone. Everyone there is in the same state of mind that no one cares about anyone else. I'll just pretend I went out for some fresh air. You'll have time to pack up and get out of town, especially with the tickets in hand. Don't argue, sit down. Kayla commanded, opening the car. No one really noticed their escape except Liam. He was just standing there smoking. He had a clear view of the courtyard through the window. He noticed Emma's frightened face, her crumpled hair, and thought, John Fool, he'll have to answer for raping girls someday. Somebody will come along and want to punish him, if not with jail, then with his wallet. Where are they going? Driving in that condition, are they crazy? The young man rushed after the girls, but when he ran out into the yard, the car was already speeding down the road away from the country house. Kayla, don't drive, please. Emma looked anxiously at the wet asphalt. The rain was beginning to drip. Everything will be fine. Don't worry. We don't have much time if we want to go unnoticed. My long absence might alert the guests. What if someone else misses John? They could put 2 and 2 together, and then we're dead. So hold on tight. Kayla! Emma shrieked as the car skidded slightly around a bend. Please slow down. We're going to crash. Don't talk under your arm, snarled her friend. I know what I'm doing. The asphalt is wet. It's raining. The wipers can't handle it. I beg you, don't rush. I'm scared. I'm scared. Kayla joked. She turned her head toward her friend, just a split second, but at that moment an oncoming car emerged from the wall of rain. The girl turned the wheel sharply to get into her lane. The car jerked. One wheel slipped off the asphalt. Kayla tried to level the car, but it suddenly became uncontrollable. The headlights caught a huge tree out of the darkness. Kayla, hold on. Emma saw the trunk of the tree instantly appear in front of them, followed by a sudden impact, and the car stood up. The clinking of glass, the sharp pain. Everything went black in Emma's eyes. She could hear the car horn blaring a harsh, one-note roar. Kayla. She called under her arm in the total darkness, but she was silent. Kayla, Don't scare me. Say something." The voices had gotten a little used to the darkness. She fumbled for her friend's shoulder, shook it. Kayla's head fell limply off the steering wheel, her body hanging from the belt. There was a ringing silence in her ears, the rain pounding fractionally on the roof of the car. With fear, Emma couldn't utter a word. "Kayla!" Again she called out to the girl. When it reached Emma that Kayla was dead, she passed out. Emma came to her senses from the cold. The rain had ended, and the sky had brightened. What am I supposed to do? She looked helplessly at her friend's disfigured, blood-soaked face. The blow had hit Kayla's side, and her body was disfigured. There was blood everywhere, shards of glass and mangled metal. "Kayla, what happened? How am I going to get home now? They're probably looking for us by now." Emma cried, her head hurting. It hurt. She touched her forehead with her hand. "Blood? Mine or Kayla's? I have to get out of here." She tried to get out of the car, but couldn't. The door was jammed. What am I going to do? Smearing her tears with blood, she cried out to the sky. "Jack's waiting for me at home, and I'm here. They'll find us, and then I'll have to answer for John's death." Emma tried to get out again, but gave up, leaned back against the seat, and closed her eyes. Kayla. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind, a crazy thought. "Forgive me, but this is the only way I can avoid jail." With shaking hands, the girl took the engagement ring off her ring finger and put it on Kayla's finger. Then she put the documents from her purse into her friend's bag and waited for help. If the deception is discovered, she thought with a shudder, "I'll be labeled a criminal twice, but this is my only chance to stay free. No one will realize Kayla died, not me." And the parents? She imagined how her mother would take her death so hard. "I'd rather have one funeral than accept the shame of my crime." I imagine the locals will be discussing my incarceration. "Mom won't survive." No, it's settled. I'll just disappear forever. This is my chance to stay out of jail, and I'll take it and save my parents the embarrassment. She leaned back again, closed her eyes, clenched her teeth tightly, telling herself not to chicken out, not to be cowardly. Emma didn't know how much time had passed since the accident, when suddenly she heard the approaching howl of a siren. People were already running towards them. It was too late to retreat. The girl lost consciousness again. "Kayla, can you hear me?" The girl came to her senses from the pungent smell of ammonia. "Kayla?" It was a flash in her head. "So Kayla's alive?" No. She stopped herself. "Kayla, it's me." "Open your eyes. Can you speak?" "Yes." In a hoarse voice, Emma said slowly, "Thank God." The doctor breathed a sigh of relief. "You'll be fine. No serious injuries. We'll go to the hospital and get an MRI. You have a concussion, but I think it's nothing serious. We'll keep you in the hospital for a couple days for observation, and then we'll let you go. No fractures, just bruises. You're very lucky." He didn't say much. "But your friend is dead. Can you give me her parents' phone number to let them know what happened?" "Yeah, write it down." "I remember their number." She dictated the phone number of her parents. Emma was pounding, wanted to scream and repent for the forgery, but she restrained herself. The fear of going to jail was stronger than reason. Tears rolled from her eyes. "It's all right. Just cry." The doctor patted her hand reassuringly. "I know it's hard to lose someone close to you. If you only knew." Emma thought, "I didn't just lose a loved one. I lost myself." Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Kayla's body being carried on a stretcher, covered by a white sheet. She tried to get up, but was stopped. "Stay down. You can't get up." "Bob?" The paramedic commanded, closing the car door. Come on, what are you standing there for? Hit the horn. The cemetery was crowded. What a young man. Friends and acquaintances of John were talking quietly. The father's angry. He said he'd find out who killed his son. Only child in the family, poor parents. I wonder why they did that to him. I know why. I should have spoiled the girls less, but I guess some girl got revenge. What are you talking about? It's not true. I know what I'm saying. Every time he has a party, he has another young fool in bed. They say he puts sleeping pills in the girl's wine glass, or maybe something worse, so they don't fight back. How do you know that? Yeah, I had a complaint, and no one went to the police. What's the point? His daddy's got the money to do the impossible. Quiet. They shouted at the people talking. Have you forgotten where you are? Have some respect for your parents' grief. My boy! The grief-stricken father said goodbye to his son. I swear I'll do everything I can to make sure the murderer is punished. I will avenge your death. I didn't raise you so that some bastard could take your life with impunity. Sleep well. Rest assured, I won't let that bastard walk free for long. Friends, he addressed the crowd. If anyone has seen or heard anything, let me know. For the sake of my son's memory, your friend, help me find the culprit. Liam silently bade farewell to his friend, placed flowers on the fresh grave mound, approached his parents. I'm sorry for your loss. He bowed to his grief-stricken mother's hand, shook his father's hand. Liam, you are his closest friend. You were by his side all the time. Can you remember minute by minute what happened that night? Okay, I'll try. The man returned home, brewed some coffee, and sat down in a cozy chair in the living room. Definitely Kayla and Emma knew something. Too quickly they left the party for good reason. Kayla had been in the lounge the whole time, which meant Emma had stayed with John. Makes sense. He reasoned. He'd liked her at first sight. Could he seduce her? He could. Nothing had ever stopped him, not even that country girl's fiancé. They drove off in my car together. Emma's dead. So we need to find Kayla. But there's something strange about this case. Liam's been thinking. How come Emma was behind the wheel? Why did Kayla give up the driver's seat? Something's not right here, but I can't figure out what it is. Kayla could clear things up, but she disappeared from the hospital without a trace, and no one knows where to find her. Okay, I'll call my police contact tomorrow, see if he can track her down. I'd like to know who's gonna pay for my car repairs. Anyway, there's nothing to repair. I have to find her anyway. The next day, Liam gave his friend all the information about Kayla, who promised to help. A week went by, another week went by, and the police were stalled, like she'd fallen through the cracks, justified by the acquaintance. The last time she was seen in the dormitory, she packed her things, took her documents from the institute, and disappeared. No one saw her again. Did some girl really stump the experienced detectives? Liam was angry. So far, no information about her had been obtained. The police had their hands full. Wait, as soon as there is news, we'll inform you. We sent her coordinates to all police stations, hospitals, morgues. She couldn't have traveled far. I don't think so. The young man said doubtfully. She's got a lot of money. Here, and the nearby settlements, we'd have under vigilant control. Your beauty is not going anywhere. I think she'll lay low for a while, and then she'll come out of the shadows. Be patient. Liam waited, but Kayla did not appear. Doris sighed sorrowfully, wiping her tear-stained eyes. Don't cry, Mother. It can't be helped. It's our daughter's fate. Eric corrected the mourning ribbons on the wreaths, put a few carnations on the fresh grave. Tears roll down my eyes when I think that I will never see my daughter again. Why should we suffer such grief in our old age? What were we not to the Almighty? She took our little girl to heaven, but she died a terrible death. Kayla, her friend, has disappeared too. 6 months since Emma's been gone, and she hasn't been home. Why did fate do such an injustice to her? Kayla, such a tomboy, is alive, and our daughter, quiet, intelligent, shy, is lying in a damp grave. God forbid anyone should bury their children. Come on, Mother, don't worry your soul. We have to settle down slowly. I'd like to see Kayla and ask her about the accident. Emma couldn't have driven someone else's car. She was taught to rely on herself for everything in life. I don't know. I still can't believe I'll never see her on the doorstep again. Never come to ask her how she's doing, Mommy. They shaved slowly toward the house. Look, Father, someone has grief and someone has fun. From afar, hearing the sound of merry music, Doris said. So it's Jack who's getting married. He didn't suffer long without Emma. And what a love affair it was. He's quickly forgotten it. Don't blame him. He's a young man. What's he got to do to be single for the rest of his life? He should have waited 6 months for decency, or before he came back from the army, he got married. Not his idea, but his mother's, who never liked our daughter. She's probably glad her son's marrying someone else. They passed Jack's house. Cheerful, tipsy guests were dancing in the street to the winding music. The happy newlyweds were accepting congratulations. Look who he married. Emma's mom was surprised. On his classmate, the village is notorious for her. That's their business, but we don't care now who he married. The elderly people passed by, trying not to look in the direction of the guests, whose faces shone with joy. They went into their house. How quiet it is. Father remarked, "It seems as if the door is about to slam, and Emma will come in." The woman, crying, came to the table, on which stood a framed photograph of a smiling daughter. The mother took it in her hands, held it on the glass. "How much we miss you, my daughter. Sit down, Mother." Taking a bottle of wine out of the refrigerator, the father spoke. "Let's remember Emma." The old men sat down, drank in silence, cried with their gray heads down. The longing for their daughter, the loneliness, was already making itself felt. Emma walked around the apartment and collected things for the maternity hospital. She was already in labor, but she knew how to behave, so she tried not to lose her temper. There was no one to help her. She was moving with difficulty, holding her big belly with one hand. "I've managed to get by without documents all this time, but they won't let me into the maternity hospital without a passport," she reasoned, pulling out her dead friend's documents. "I hope it'll be over quickly, as long as no one's looking for me." "Okay." She sat down on the edge of the chair. "Time to call an ambulance. Go to the hospital. I can't give birth here." A few minutes later, the ambulance arrived. They didn't ask any questions in the emergency room and sent her straight to the prenatal room. "Well, Mommy?" The midwife gave her a friendly smile. "What are we going to give birth to?" "A boy." Emma said glumly, writhing in pain, "Why don't I see any joy on your face?" The midwife asked again, helping the woman in labor onto the table. "What is there to be happy about?" "I hate my baby. It shouldn't even be here. You're suffering from prenatal depression," the nurse said confidently. "It happens to first-time moms. The baby's gonna come out now, and you're gonna be fine. Come on, help him into the world." Emma screamed with pain, but tried to follow all the midwife's commands. When everything was over and she was brought to the room, the woman lay with her eyes open for a long time, listening to her body. "I'm finally rid of him," she thought. A nurse entered the room, checked the condition of the woman who had given birth, dimmed the light in the room, adjusted the blanket, and said, "Rest for now, Soon your son will be brought to you for feeding." "I will not feed him," Emma said firmly. "What kind of news is that?" The girl was surprised. "I don't want that baby." "How can you say that? It's your baby, your most dear person." "I don't need it. I didn't want it. I was just too late with the abortion." "Tell the head doctor I want to write a refusal." "Are you crazy?" "I'm not naming anyone. Get some rest, and we'll talk tomorrow. I'll ask the mom to feed your baby, and you get the hell out of your head. Even if things didn't work out with the father, it's not the baby's fault." Emma turned away from the talkative nurse, showing that she had her own opinion. She had already decided everything for herself, and she wasn't going to change anything. The woman breathed a sigh of relief, having gotten rid of the problem that had been plaguing her for 9 months. Congratulations. She remembered the doctor's words. "You're going to be a mom soon." "No way," Emma exclaimed, gasping in horror. She had so hoped that her accidental intimacy with John, against her will, would end with only unpleasant memories of that unfortunate day. But the miracle had not happened. The seed of the man who raped her sprouted. "You're not going to have an abortion, are you?" the doctor asked worriedly. "I am. This child is not the fruit of love. But for you, an abortion could have undesirable consequences. The time frame is long enough, you could be infertile forever. You'll have to give birth. Maybe in the meantime you'll grow to love your baby." Such thoughts appear in many first-time mothers, and then it passes. "It's not my case. I don't need a baby. I'm not happy about it. However, I can always leave him in the hospital." Now, lying alone in the room, Emma remembered how she had cried with resentment after the doctor's visit. Everything was going great for her. She got a job right away. No one asked her for documents. Life was starting to get better. She expected to sit out for a while and then find a way to inform her parents about herself. And here, thoughts swarmed in her head. Memories kept her awake, and somewhere deep in her heart, there was anxiety. Emma was worried for a reason. She didn't realize that Liam was already on her trail. Liam? The same day Emma was admitted by ambulance, a young man answered the phone. "A friend of yours has come forward. Where is she?" "He's awake." "In the hospital. They brought her in today. I'll text you the address." "How in the hospital?" He was surprised. "Is she pregnant?" "By whom? But that's for you to know." The man on the other end of the line laughed. The man immediately quickly got ready, got in his car, and went to the address the acquaintance had given him. He was in a hurry. He was curious to see who he would actually see. "Hello." He turned to the nurse on duty. "A friend of mine was brought in by ambulance today." Liam said Kayla's last name. "Yes, she came in with a baby boy." "Can I take a look at her?" "I want to make sure it's her and not her namesake." "Not allowed." The nurse replied sternly. "This is a maternity ward, not a modeling agency. You should understand. If you are noticed, I can be fired." "I'm begging you." The man looked at her pleadingly and at the same time, as if unintentionally, pushed the woman a bill. "Okay." Quickly shooting her eyes around, the nurse slipped the bill into her pocket, adjusted her medical cap, stood up from behind the counter, and handed the named visitor a robe. "Come with me." "It's lucky that we arrived in the evening. During the day, I would never have risked to enter the ward. There are children there." "Here she is." The woman nodded at the young mother sleeping peacefully in the bed. "No," Liam said, looking disappointedly at Emma. "It's not her. I'll go to another maternity hospital." He got back in the car. "I knew it." Emma couldn't have been behind the wheel. So she killed John and took advantage of the situation and switched documents to escape justice. The man was thinking, "No, honey, it doesn't work that way. You're a criminal and a liar. I must inform John's father. Hopefully, he will find a way to thank me for finding his son's killer." With these thoughts, Liam dialed the right number, James. He spoke as his father's sad voice came through the phone. "I have news about John's death." "Hello, Liam. What news can you tell me?" "It's been a year since your friend's death, and the killer is still walking free." "I don't think he has long to enjoy it." The young man chuckled. "I found him. Or rather, her." "Who?" James asked impatiently. "John's killer, an acquaintance of mine who died in an accident, brought her friend Emma to the party." "Emma died, didn't she?" "Looks like we were wrong. The thing is, the girls are very similar on the outside, but on the inside, they're almost complete opposites. John liked Emma, quiet and modest on the outside. What happened between them, I can't say, but she was the one who dealt the fatal blow to your son. Kayla helped to avoid, but the accident made a difference. Emma switched IDs with my girlfriend and fled the scene under a false name. I suspected forgery, but I needed proof. You wouldn't believe my crazy idea, but today I saw Emma with my own eyes, the perpetrator. So that's how it is. I could strangle her with my own hands, but I won't. I'll beat a confession out of her. Not by myself, of course. I don't want to get my hands dirty with that scum. My lawyers will do everything they can to put her away for a long time. She can't get away with it now. She doesn't know who she's messing with yet. No one's ever been able to fool me before. My revenge will be terrible." "Liam, where can we find her?" "She's in the maternity ward." "In the maternity ward?" The man was surprised. "She works there?" "She just had a baby yesterday." Liam paused. "Wouldn't you like to know whose baby it is?" He asked practically. "I'm not interested in knowing." The man replied impatiently. "Who she gave birth to her bastard child." "I don't fight with children, but the mother will go to jail anyway. It's your grandson." "What?" James shouted. "If this is a joke, you'll pay dearly for it. It won't even help that you found that Emma for me. I suspect that on that fateful night, John slept with her. You don't know what caused the quarrel. You know your son best. Don't get off the subject." His father, disturbed by the news, interrupted him impatiently. "We both know how John lured the girls into bed, but even this fact does not justify the murderer. She committed a crime and should be punished." "I agree." Liam spoke peacefully. "Well, Emma is probably pregnant, and if you hurry up you can see your grandson before she runs away again. Are you sure he's John's son?" "I'm sure. Emma's fiancé was in the army at the time. She was expecting him in 2 months to get married. She wouldn't cheat willingly. If that's the case." Liam heard James breathing heavily with excitement. "Am I going to have to orphan my own grandson?" "But you can raise him yourself," the young man said curtly. "But how? She's a mother. To take a child away from its mother?" No, I can't. But she took your only son from you. Did she not think what it would be like for you to lose a child? This boy, it's an extension of John. Yes, his baby. You're right. I'll take her son away from her. Let her feel on her own skin how painful it is to be left without a child, when your heart bleeds an unhealed wound, when your soul hurts at the thought that you will never again hear your own voice, never look into your eyes, when it seems that God has turned away from you. I'm sure. Liam spoke ingratiatingly. God is on your side. You have the right to raise your child yourself. What could a murderer give his son? You're right. You're absolutely right. I will not allow my grandson to live next to a criminal. I'll go and get the child right now. There's no pity for her. Tell me how to find her." Liam dictated the address and the name Emma was hiding under. "Liam," said sadly James, "you're a good friend, thank you. When the baby is in my house, and it is confirmed that he is indeed John's heir, I will thank you generously. If you want, I can offer you a good monetary position in my firm." The man couldn't see how Liam blushed with pleasure, satisfied that he was able to please such an influential person. "Thank you. I would be happy to work for you," he replied, trying to hold back the joy that was about to burst out. Meanwhile, Emma's discharge had already arrived. She was packing her things when the midwife who had delivered her came into the room. "Emma, I'm told you've written a waiver?" "Yes, don't try to talk me into it. I've made up my mind." The young woman spoke calmly. She tried to close her heart to doubts about the rightness of the act. "You mustn't do this. He's your son. Don't you feel sorry for him? Can't someone else love him the way you do? I don't know what happened with his father, but it's not the kid's fault. There will be many other men in your life. They will lie that they love you and betray you at the worst possible moment, and only your son will never betray you and will love you simply because you are a mom. Very soon he will learn to recognize you. Then he will say his first word. Do you know what it is? Mommy, listen to your heart. Doesn't it hurt? Doesn't it tell you to stop? Don't make a mistake." Emma sat up in bed with her head bowed. The first tear fell on her hand, then another. The woman sobbed. "Imagine how your little boy will cry alone when I embrace him, not the long-awaited arms of his mom, but the indifferent hands of someone else's aunt. Isn't that a shame? I can't believe you're so heartless." And then Emma burst into bitter tears. The midwife came up to her, stroked her head. "Cry, sweetheart, you'll feel better. You'll share all the difficulties now. From now on, you'll never feel lonely. Go to the head doctor's office, get a statement. Believe me, someday you'll thank me for talking you out of it, for stopping you. Thank you." Emma said through her tears, "I really almost made the biggest mistake of my life, but I don't even have clothes for him." She looked at the midwife in confusion. "We've collected some things for you in the ward, enough for the first time, and then you can buy whatever you think you need and take a small sum from me. I'm ashamed to take money from you. Take it, as long as everything works out well for you." Emma left the maternity hospital with a light heart. Happy, she walked out into the fresh air, holding her son to her chest. She stopped on the sidewalk, waiting for the cab that the receptionist girl had called for her. At that moment, a black, tinted Jeep stopped nearby. Two men in black suits grabbed the woman, took the child, and shoved her into the cabin. "Well, hello, Emma." Smiling sinisterly, James scrutinized the young mother. "You've made a mistake." In a trembling voice, she objected. "I'm not Emma. My name is Kayla. Who are you? What do you want from me?" "My name is James. I'm John's father." "Do you remember him?" Emma went cold. "I see you do. It's time to pay the bills. You robbed me of my son, and for that I will rob you of your son and your freedom. You dare not take my child from me." The woman jerked, trying to get out of the hands of the kidnappers. "No one will ask your permission." James answered calmly, "He's my grandson." "That's not true," Emma shouted, rushing toward her son. "He's mine. I think the genetic test will confirm my guess." The Jeep stopped. "What are you going to do to me?" "Don't worry, I won't kill you. It's not my profile. I will hand you over to the law enforcement agencies, and they will, according to the law, impose a fair punishment. I'll just try to make it as severe as possible." The door opened and Emma was dragged out of the car. "Don't touch me," she lashed out. screaming, kicking, but the men were relentless. "You monster! I have a small child. Have pity on me." The woman cried, holding out her arms to James. "Don't deprive the child of its mother, I beg you." "I am not touched by your tears," the man replied harshly. "Pity for the likes of you has cost me dearly. I will not rest until I hear the verdict of the court. At least let me say goodbye to my son." With all her strength, Emma begged. "See her, boys," James ordered. "You'll never see him again. I'll make sure he doesn't even remember you." Emma was taken to the investigator. The woman realized that she was doomed and there was no chance of salvation. She answered questions, indifferently obeyed police orders. In the cell, surrounded by her own kind, she kept silent all the time, forcing herself to resign herself to the inevitable. Well, a week later, the investigator reported, "We've prepared your case for the court. How much will they give me?" With a sinking heart, the woman asked. "I don't know what the maximum punishment the prosecutor will ask for, but I think you won't be free for the next 15 years. 15? Emma was horrified. "Well, he raped me. Why won't anyone believe me? Couldn't that fact be a mitigating factor?" I had to defend myself. "The birth of my son is proof that I'm telling the truth." "Did you tell your lawyer all this?" "I did." Tiredly, she whispered, "But he doesn't listen. He just keeps saying the same thing. It's been a long time. There are no witnesses. It's impossible to prove rape." And he's right. If you had not fled from the scene of the crime and passed the examination, the case could be considered from a different angle, but, unfortunately, you hurt yourself. And besides, the son of a very powerful man in our city is dead, and he will stop at nothing until he puts you in jail for a very long time. How could that be? Doesn't the law work? Alas, this man has people everywhere, even in the courts and the prosecutor's office. They work for him, he pays them, so you're in a bad position. There was no one in the courtroom except for those directly involved in the trial. James didn't show up either. He was represented by counsel. Court is now in session. The clerk announced loudly. Emma clung tightly to the bars of the iron grating, almost not listening to the body materials, but when the judge began to read out the verdict, turned into hearing. To impose a punishment of 20 years of general regime colony. How? 20 years? The woman screamed. I have extenuating circumstances. Why didn't the court take them into account? For what? She sobbed, looking at the participants of the process in a huff. I have a child. You can't send me to jail for so many years. You can't. You can't. And you have the right to appeal within 10 days. The secretary said the memorized phrase indifferently. Emma was led out from behind the courtroom. She walked, unable to feel her feet under her. When I get out, my son will be a grown man and will never forgive me. She thought as she got into the police car, he won't even know anything about me. James will probably say I'm dead. And me, I really am dead. I've been destroyed, wiped off the face of the earth. I did it all with my own hands. I am guilty before my parents, before my son, and there is no excuse for me. The woman looked through the dusty window of the car. Houses were passing by. People were walking by. They were laughing, talking about something. And for her life stopped for 20 years. The doors of the colony opened, and Emma stepped into freedom. Goodbye, she said to the guard. Goodbye. It's customary here to say goodbye, not to come back. I won't come back, I promise. She stopped, raised her head to the sky. It's different here, she thought. Huge, vast, and the sun shining down on her. Where are you going now? I'll go home, repent to my parents, maybe they'll forgive me. Parents always forgive their children. Emma got worried when the bus stopped and the driver said, "The end of the line." "Woman, do you hear that?" He addressed her. "The bus isn't going any further. Did you fall asleep in there?" "I'm sorry." She hurried away, waking up from her thoughts. Emma recognized and did not recognize her native village. It had changed, become more beautiful. Many new houses, even younger. She grinned. People are getting older, but the area is getting younger. It's an amazing phenomenon. The woman hesitantly stepped onto the porch of her house, grasped the handle, and the door creaked open. She walked down the familiar corridor and opened the door to the hallway, hesitated, trying to place a small travel bag on the floor. In the semi-darkness, she stepped on something, stumbled. The bag fell out of her hands and dropped to the floor with a thud. "Who's making a noise?" She heard her father's voice and stepped resolutely into the room. "What are you doing, sweetie?" "Is it necessary? Looking for someone?" I didn't recognize him. Emma's mind flashed. "Daddy," she said softly. "It's me, Emma." "Who?" Squinting his watery eyes, the old man came closer, putting his glasses on his nose with shaky hands. "It can't be. You're dead. We buried you 20 years ago." He reached out his hand, unable to believe his eyes. He ran his hand over her cheek, over her shoulder. How could it be? He slumped down on the chair next to him. "Where has it been all these years? Who did we bury then?" "Daddy." Emma rushed to her father, fell to her knees, grabbed his hands, and started kissing them. Tears choked her. "I'm so sorry. I'm so guilty before you, Mommy. I will tell you everything. You will understand that I could not have done otherwise. Just don't send me away. I need you so much. I miss you so much. My daughter." The old man finally believed that his daughter was alive. "Daughter, how can it be?" "All the years I thought you were dead, I went to your grave. But you're alive, alive and here with me. What joy is that?" He bent down and kissed her, as in childhood, on the top of her head. Laughing and crying at the same time, Emma hugged her father, kissed his unshaven cheek. "Where's Mom? Did she go to the store or is she at the neighbor's?" "Daughter." Wiping his tears, the father said sadly, "No, Mom. She died 10 years ago. When they buried you, she started to get sick, and then she went sick. She was very sad." "Daddy?" Emma clung to her father. "I'm so sorry for you. It's my fault that Mom died. Don't blame yourself. You can't bring your mother back. It's good that I came back. Now I'm not afraid to die. Why am I sitting here, you old fool?" He got up and fussed in the kitchen. "Sit down. I'll feed you now. You need to rest from the road." "Don't worry, Father." "Papa, I'm happy to be back home. You can't imagine how my heart ached for you. But I couldn't go back, believe me. Let's eat now, and then you can tell me all about it." After the bath, steamed, washed away by what seemed to be the weight of years spent behind bars, Emma felt an unaccustomed lightness in her whole body. She only now realized how tired she was, how much she missed the smell of her own home and her father's voice. Nothing had changed in the house since her disappearance. The woman was glad to plunge into familiar surroundings. I'd forgotten how nice it was here. She sat at the table, rested, relaxed. It's always nice at your parents' house, because you grew up here. "Daughter?" Her father looked at her questioningly. "Tell me, what happened to you?" Emma spoke. She was in a hurry to get rid of the unpleasant memories that had weighed heavily on her heart for so many years. "So I have a grandson?" Shaking his head thoughtfully, the old man asked, "But I don't think I'll ever get to meet him. James, I'm sure, described me to the boy as a monster. I don't think even if I tried to find him, he wouldn't want to talk to me." "That's a shame." Dad sighed heavily. "I'd like to see him before I die. Just one eye. No matter what happens, he's the continuation of our family. Don't hope for a reunion. It'll never happen. Why don't you ask me about Jack? Or have you forgotten him? I hope he's doing well. Unfortunately, he was unlucky with his wife. After he got back from the army, he hastily married a classmate. My mother and I always wondered how it was that he so quickly moved on to another, before your grave got cold." The father looked guiltily at his daughter. "Oh, I'm sorry." "It's all right, Dad. That's just the way it was. So not much time has passed, and he's already taken someone else to the wedding. We were even offended. And it turned out that his mother had betrothed him. She didn't want him to feel sorry for you. She was afraid he wouldn't marry at all, suffering for you. And that girl was not a bad girl. She got pregnant right after the wedding, and the boy was born prematurely. Jack didn't like his wife much, but he was very fond of the boy. I'm glad for him." Emma said, and she felt a pang of jealousy in her heart, but she didn't let it show that she was unpleasant to hear about the happy family life of her former fiancé. He and his wife had divorced, abandoned by her father. Oh, the woman was surprised. How so? Jack and his son, and only 14 years later, it turned out that the child was not his at all. How come? And just like that, his wife, even before the wedding on a walk-it, with some stranger and hid from everyone, and then very fortunately Jack, suffering for the dead bride, turned up. So she took the opportunity to cover up the shame. Jack's mother liked her in school, and she didn't miss the opportunity to arrange her son's personal life, but she miscalculated. Jack, of course, could not forgive the betrayal of his wife and filed for divorce. But what about the child? It's not his fault that the mother is a cheat. Did Jack give up on him? His wife took the boy and left the village. They didn't forgive her for the deception. I remember walking through the village, and the women spit on her and laughed, making dirty jokes. I couldn't stand it, so I ran away. And Jack, where is he now? Jack. The old man sighed heavily. Since then he's been drinking, he's been fired from his job, he's become a real recluse. His mother now complains to everyone that she broke her son's fate with her own hands. What's the use? The guy's gone downhill. I feel sorry for him. He walks around like a shadow. Doesn't talk to anyone. He buys vodka at the store and goes to his room. Doesn't want to see anyone. He's all alone. It was 2 days before Emma returned home. She tried to be in public less often. It was good to be unrecognized, so there was no need to explain her long absence and sudden resurrection. One evening, she was returning from the river. A tall, unkempt man walked toward her with a shuffling gait. His once good figure was now disfigured by a belly protruding unpleasantly from his jeans. Dark, long, uncut hair stuck out in all directions. His chin was overgrown with a week's worth of stubble, some of it gray. The features of his face, his brown eyes cloudy with alcohol, looked familiar to her. She approached the man and gave a startled gasp. "Jack," it came out of Emma's mouth. "Do I know you?" He stopped, gazing into the stranger's face. "Don't you recognize me?" Jack shook his head negatively. "I'm Emma. Dibs on me, dibs on me." The man waved his hands at her. "Emma's gone. What do you want from me?" "I'm alive, Jack. Look closely. Don't you recognize her?" Jack studied her face for a long time. With each passing minute, the look became more and more meaningful. Finally, an epiphany came. "You?" He exhaled. "But you were buried 20 years ago. Where did you come from?" Resurrected, or am I drunk and already hallucinating. He joked cheerfully, "You've changed so much, I'd never have recognized you. You and I have both changed." She smiled warmly at her former lover. "Where I've been all these years is far from a sanatorium. We need to talk." The man stepped towards her and tried to hug her. The woman was overcome by the unpleasant odor of booze and unwashed body. "We'll definitely talk." Emma gently pulled away from him. "But not today, my father is waiting for me." "Come back tomorrow, just get yourself cleaned up." "I want to talk to the Jack I used to know." She went into her yard and closed the gate. "Why are you smiling?" her father asked her. "I met Jack. We didn't recognize each other right away. How is he? I didn't expect to see him like this." I think the woman smiled again. "We should expect guests tomorrow." Emma wasn't wrong. Toward evening, there was a not-so-bold knock on the door. "Come in, Jack." Emma invited him in, not doubting it was him. "How did you know it was me?" Entering the house, the man asked. "We weren't expecting anyone else but you." Emma answered simply, "Come to the table. We'll have dinner." She noticed how Jack had changed in just one day. Clean-shaven and cut, he looked fresher and even seemed younger to Emma. A light, loose shirt hid his belly. The wrinkles on his face smoothed out a little and the blue circles under his eyes disappeared. "You are unrecognizable," Emma's father remarked cheerfully. "All right, young people." He left the house. "I won't disturb you. You need to talk, and I'm going to visit an old friend. I haven't been there for a long time." "I barely waited for tonight," the man admitted, pulling out a small bouquet of flowers from behind his back. "I really wanted to see you." "Thank you." Emma blushed, accepting the flowers. She set them in a vase, her hands trembling with excitement. She didn't know where to start the conversation. "Jack." She turned sharply toward him. "I didn't mean to leave you." "I failed my institute exams and had already bought tickets home, but something happened. It's hard for me to talk about it. The circumstances were such that I couldn't come back. I couldn't tell you everything because I was afraid you'd hate me." "How could you think such a thing? How could I hate you?" "I thought you left me for a rich guy in the city. I didn't want to live at that moment. And then I find out you're dead. My mother's been bugging me about it. Get married." "Honestly, I didn't care who I married at the time. I have a son." Suddenly, Emma said, unexpectedly, even to herself, "But I've never seen him." And the woman told what had happened to her. They sat until dark and talked about how they had lived without each other all these years. "I don't want to leave." Jack spoke quietly when Emma's father returned from his visit. "I'm afraid you'll disappear again tomorrow." "I don't want to leave you either." The woman replied just as quietly. "But let's not rush things. We both need to think things over. But that doesn't mean we can't see each other. Let's try to start over, shall we?" "I agree." "Grandpa, how old is my mom now?" "Robert asked me once." "I don't know." James replied irritably. "Why do you want to know?" "That woman can't be called your mother. I forbade you even to think about her." "But why?" The young man was indignant. "Whatever you say about her, she is still my mother, and I want to meet her." "I forbid you to mention her name." The grandfather got angry. "Have you forgotten that she is your father's murderer? That's the only thing you should know about her. She committed a crime in cold blood and paid for it. Put her out of your mind. Do something more useful. Pay attention to your studies." "You never say anything about her when her sentence is up?" "I don't know exactly, but I think it's the other day." James shrugged. "Why don't we go to the prison and find out more? In fact, I have to find out for myself. Make a date with her. You can do anything." Only God can do anything, noted James. I won't let you see that criminal, but I want to find out why she killed my father. For a reason, what happened between them? Do you know? I don't know, and I don't want to know. Are you trying to make excuses for her? I'm not going to make excuses. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Shut up right now. Grandpa got angry. I forbid digging into the past. If it would help me get John back, I would do everything I could to get the truth out of Emma. But that's impossible. If that woman rots behind bars, I'll be glad. How can you say that? She's my mother. Yes, unfortunately. That's the only good thing she did. I love you, you're my grandson, but let's stop talking. She's dead to you. I don't want to hear about her anymore. Upset by the conversation with his grandson, James disappeared into the study, slamming the door loudly. If you don't want to talk about her, I'll find out. I just need to understand what happened. Why did the young woman commit murder? And no one can stop me. The next day, Robert overhears his grandfather talking to his lawyer and learns that Emma is already free. I have to find an address and meet her. The young man decided. Waiting until his grandfather left for the firm, he found among the documents the address of Emma, where she lived with her father. Without wasting a minute, he persuaded the driver to take him to the address. Robert looked with interest at the old wooden house, which had not been painted for a long time. The fence had swayed in several places, and there was a bright bed of flowers near the porch. "Young man, who are you looking for?" A middle-aged woman appeared on the porch. Pain lurked in her beautiful brown eyes. Above the bridge of her nose, there was a deep crease, and the corners of her lips were sadly pulled down. Her pale face, once quite handsome, was marred by bags under her eyes and a fine mesh of wrinkles. She was wrapped in an old down shawl, though it was warm outside. Robert looked at his mother in silence and did not know what to say, how to start the conversation. "Hello." Finally, he decided. "I'm very thirsty. Come inside. I'll make you drunk." The woman grinned. "Sit down." She pointed to a chair. "Why aren't you so brave? I haven't been to the village for 20 years. I don't know you young people." She handed me a glass of morsa. "Or are you a stranger?" "I am your son," quietly said the young man, putting an empty glass on the table. "Who?" Emma was stunned. "Is this a joke?" "No, I really am your son." He stared intently at the complete stranger who was his mother. "Why did you come here?" Emma couldn't stand. Her legs trembled. She sank down on the sofa. "Did your grandfather send you to make sure I was still alive?" "Grandfather doesn't know I'm here." "He doesn't." She glared at the man who called himself her son. "I want to know why you killed my father and why you gave up on me." "Why?" "All my life I've only heard one version, but I want to hear the other side. You sound like a lawyer. I am a future lawyer. It's a good profession. Then I'll answer your question without beating around the bush. Your father, he raped me by putting sleeping pills in my wine glass." "Raped you how?" "My grandfather said you got him into bed, and then you wanted to cash in, but it didn't work out. James tricked you. I had no way to defend myself. The sleeping pills took effect immediately, and when I woke up, it was already done. I almost freaked out when I realized what had happened, and I wanted to get away, but John held me back. So I hit him with the first thing I could find, a vase on the head. I didn't mean to kill him. It was an accident. I was scared. I was just a girl, a naive, trusting fool. I paid for it. He fell in love with you. You must have been beautiful when you were young. Everyone's pretty when they're young. That might be an excuse for someone else, but not for John. He's used to taking whatever he likes without asking permission. I'm not the first victim. It's just that no one could fight back, but I could. There was no talk of love. The next day, I had to go to my fiancé, whom I was waiting for from the army. John found out that I wouldn't give myself to him willingly. I told him right away. Jean ruined my life, but I really didn't want to kill him. Emma was silent. She was watching the young man closely. Handsome. A woman, she thought. Strong. James hadn't spoiled him like a son. Kind, naive, like me at his age. Will he believe me? What's your name? Robert. Grandpa said you wanted to leave me at the hospital. It's true. She saw her son jerk as if he'd been hit, so she hurried to explain. But only at first, because you're not the product of loving parents, and then I came to my senses, and we left the hospital together. But James separated us. He sent me to prison and took you to his house. Believe me, the woman said quietly, if I'd been able to sneak out of the hospital, I would never have left you. A lot of things wouldn't have happened in your life. Your grandmother would still be alive, and your grandfather, my father, would have taught you simple earthly joys. You wouldn't have had the luxuries of life, but you wouldn't have lacked love. Grandfather warned me you'd make excuses, convince me you were innocent. I don't believe you. I understand James, too. I realize he lost his only son. I have no reason to lie. I have paid too dear a price for my crime. The woman was silent. I'm glad you found me. She confessed, tears glistening in her eyes. Even in her wildest dreams, she dared not hope to meet you. I have to go. Robert stood up abruptly. Of course. Wiping away her tears, Emma followed. I realize you're an adult, and I'm a stranger to you, but I want you to know. For 20 years, I've been thinking about you, imagining you growing up. Thinking about you kept me alive behind bars. If you ever forgive me and want to come back, remember you're loved here. Robert stood for a moment, staring intently into his mother's eyes. Did he read what he wanted? The woman didn't know. The young man walked resolutely out of the house without another word. At the door, he almost collided with Emma's father. The man looked at him in surprise. Who is this young man? Asked the old man. This is your grandson, Robert. Smiling through her tears, Emma replied. Robert returned and closed himself in his room. His thoughts were confused. How could it be? He wondered. His grandfather had painted her as a murderer, but it turned out she was the victim. What if his mother was lying? Doubts tormented him. I don't know her at all. It doesn't seem like it. He sat up abruptly on the bed, ran his fingers through his hair, and sat like that, replaying the conversation with his mother in his head. She didn't seem to be after money. She sounded sincere. I could see she was worried about what had happened. Either she's a great actress or... Robert jumped to his feet and paced from corner to corner. So then my grandfather deliberately convinced me all these years that my mother was a cold-blooded, unscrupulous criminal. Forbade me from seeing her so I wouldn't find out the truth. Robert had been thinking for days that something had not been told to him all these years. He grew gaunt, didn't sleep well at night. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. I must talk to him. The young man headed resolutely to the office, where after work, James looked through the documents. Grandpa, answer one question for me. Can it wait? Without lifting his head from the papers, the man asked. No, I need you to answer right away. Okay. Leaning back in his chair, James spoke. I'm listening. Did you know that my father raped Emma? Who told you? The man tensed, sitting up sharply in his chair. I saw my mother. What the hell? James shrieked and jumped to his feet. I forbade you to see her. You disobeyed me. Wasn't that why you forbade it? so I wouldn't find out the truth. What truth? Grandfather was getting hot. The truth is that she took your father's life. It doesn't matter why she did it. There is no excuse, do you understand? There's no excuse for her. But why? Grandfather, she was defending herself. Don't you dare. I don't want to hear anything more about her. She's a criminal, period. You didn't answer the question, Grandpa. Robert could barely keep from screaming at him. Did you know that your father periodically raped girls in your country house? They would jump into his bunk all by themselves. James gasped with indignation. Everyone wanted to marry him because he was the son of rich parents. No one dragged them there by force, and not one complained that he was rude. My mother had a fiancé. You see, she was going to get married, and my father abused her. He felt like it. He was hoping to get away with it again, and my mother decided to say no. So he's the perpetrator. Don't you dare sully the memory of my son. The man coughed. Tears welled up in his eyes. He was a good boy, a great son. James suddenly stopped talking, stared at his grandson with a frozen look, and clutched at his heart. Grandfather. Robert cried out wildly and rushed to the man, helping him to lie down on the couch. Grandfather, be patient. I'll call an ambulance. Just don't die. Hello, ambulance, come here. The man is sick. The ambulance came quickly. The doctor examined the patient, frowned, and said briefly, "In the hospital urgently, a massive heart attack. We'll do everything we can, but hope for the best." Robert spent the night at his grandfather's bedside. He berated himself for his intemperance. It was my fault. He confessed to the doctor. If I hadn't started the argument, everything would have been all right. Don't blame yourself. The doctor reassured him. Your grandfather has had heart problems for a long time. The conversation was the last straw that triggered the attack. Not today, so tomorrow, it would have happened anyway. The young man stood at the window and looked at the street. He felt madly sorry for his grandfather. Robert. Suddenly he heard the faint voice of James. Abruptly he looked around and rushed to him. Grandpa? Grandpa, are you awake? You scared me. The young man smiled. Robert, I want you to bring Emma to me. The old man coughed harshly, closed his eyes, his chest heaved. I don't have long. I want to talk to her. Hurry up, please. Grandfather, can't we wait until you're well? Robert asked cautiously. I don't have time to wait. James said slowly, struggling to catch his breath. Go now, you have to get there in time. And if she doesn't, convince her. Promise whatever you want, but bring her to me. Robert left immediately for the village, drove to a familiar house, quickly ran up to the porch, knocked and entered the room. Robert? Emma was surprised to see him. I didn't expect you back. Something wrong? The woman asked him sympathetically, noticing the pain on his face. Yes, it's bad with my grandfather. I'll tell you everything on the way. Get ready. He asked you to come. Why? Emma was puzzled. What does he want from me? I'm not going to claim anything. Don't ask me anything. Begging, looking at his mother, Robert asked. Let's just go. He doesn't have long to go. I'm afraid I won't make it. I think he's going to say something very important. Emma looked at her son confusedly, then quickly pulled herself together. I'm ready to throw my purse over my shoulder, she muttered. They cautiously entered the room. There, covered with tubes, on white sheets, lay James. He had aged overnight, shrunken somehow. His hands lay lifelessly on top of the sheets. Grandfather. Robert called softly to him. We're here. James slowly opened his eyes and focused on Emma. You didn't refuse to come to a dying man? He grinned. Are you triumphant that your enemy has been defeated? James, if you've called me to exercise my sarcasm, I'd better go. All right, no offense. He didn't say anything. I called to apologize for my son. Robert told me everything. But I want to hear from you. Is it true that John raped you? Yes, Emma answered calmly. It's true. It's my fault I've never known rejection for anything. It's true, Robert. John ruined your life. I didn't want to believe it. I thought you were just as greedy as all his girlfriends. But you're different. If you can, I'm sorry. Also, I want to thank you for your grandson. He's a good kid, persistent, fair. He's like you in that way. Next to him, I lived the happiest years of my life and always worried about how he will be alone. And now my soul is calm. You are next to him. The old man closed his eyes and fell silent. Emma thought he had fallen asleep. She looked at her son understandingly, but James spoke again. Robert will receive a huge inheritance. There are bound to be people around who want to cheat him. Help him not to get lost. Promise? I promise, if he lets me. The woman answered, and you too, forgive me. James held out his hand, and Emma shook it gently. Robert approached them and put his hand in hers. The three of them held hands until the doctor arrived. You'd better go. He's very weak. Let him rest. Yes. Grandpa closed his eyes again. I'm tired. You go. Emma and Robert went outside together. You will be taken home. The young man turned away from his mother to hide the tears in his eyes. Robert, you can address me on a first-name basis, she asked. Okay. I'm not used to it yet. I understand, and I'm not rushing you. You need to be alone. Too much has happened in the last few days. The young man walked his mother to the car, opened the door, helping her to get in, raised his hand, saying goodbye. Quietly confused, she returned home. Daughter, are you all right? You don't look like yourself. Her father greeted her worriedly. She went somewhere without telling me. I went to the hospital. James is dying. She looked tiredly at her father. Can you believe he apologized to me and thanked me for my grandson? Emma shuddered when the phone rang in the evening, her heart throbbing unpleasantly. Grandpa had died. She heard the phone ring. Robert? The woman's voice trembled. Should I come over? How are you alone? Or you could come to our house and meet your grandfather. Not today. She heard a voice trembling with tears. You can come any time you hear, Robert. You're welcome. Good. There was silence for a moment. Mom. Emma stood crying. A pitiful beeping could be heard in the receiver. She couldn't tear herself away from it. What is it? Father asked impatiently. James is dead. Dad, she looked at her father, her eyes wet with tears. Robert called me Mom. The first time. How have I waited for this moment? It's okay, the old man reassured her. It'll work out. Think about it. You're a total stranger to him. Give the guy time. You have yet to really get to know each other, and the process will not be quick and difficult, painful, but you have so much time ahead of you.